Welcome, everyone. My name is Platon Isaias. I am the head of Projective Cities MPhil program at the AA. This is one of our public lectures that we started this term, and we will continue term 3. And we want to thank also AA Public Program, and especially Manager and Liam for their support and help with all of this. This is a series that we somehow thought and designed in order to respond to a problem that we always encounter and we discuss in our studios and educational spaces, which is to imagine and to script new alternative forms of practice, architecture, and to think outside of the box, but also in a socially and politically engaging way. And that's something that it's really the main, at the core of the interests and the problematics of not just our program, but I would say the entire AA. The AA is a space where these questions are really out there, and they are discussed every day and every hour in every studio, in every program. We're incredibly happy to have with us today POoR Collective, or Power Out of Restriction, an amazing group of architects, Shawn, Larry, Matt, and Ben. I'm not going to introduce them now because they have something in the presentation introducing themselves. So I asked them not to do it because they will do the always uncomfortable thing to read someone's bio. So they will do it themselves, which is even more uncomfortable, but that's fine because it's not me doing it. So just very briefly, I would just say a few words about the collective, which is a social enterprise that focuses on the development of communities through the elevation of young people. POoR sees the power of the younger generation and seeks to get young voices heard. Through knowledge sharing and design, they aim to bridge the gap between communities, bring together a wealth of demographics, and empower the youth of today, which I think it's a very, very important task for everyone in education, not just architectural education, but education of large. So without any further delay, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, welcome aboard. Hope everyone's doing okay. We're really happy to be here presenting today. We are POoR Collective and we'll be hosting today's presentation. Today's presentation will consist of an introduction to who we are, how we came to be. We'll then talk about some of the projects that we're currently working on. And then this will then lead on nicely to some of the lessons that we have taken away from our short-term operation. And then finally, talking about some of our goals that we're aiming or striving to achieve in the coming years. So, Ben, if you could move on. Yeah, so we are POoR Collective, and POoR is an acronym for Power Out of Restriction. POoR focuses on the development of communities through the elevation of young people. We see the importance of the youth, and we believe that young people of today are the future. So that's mainly the reason why we try to seek and provide a platform to get young people's voices heard. Through things like knowledge sharing and design, we try to bridge the gap between communities, bringing together a wealth of demographics with the aim, hopefully, to empower young people. Ben, next slide, please. Next slide. So we're a small team of 4, and everyone's going to briefly introduce themselves. So Ben, if you could move on to the next slide, please.
So hey everyone, I'm Larry Botchway. I'm the head of communications at POoR Collective. I'm an architectural designer, researcher, and illustrator. And I guess my main belief is I really believe in the power of diverse voices in design.
Hi everyone, I'm Ben Spry, and I'm a speaker, architectural designer, and an environmental campaigner. And I'm head of community engagement at POoR, so I kind of look after how and why we kind of effectively and meaningfully engage with young people in the first place, and how we get their voices heard in the kind of in the built environment at the same kind of level as us, and also other kind of elements out there. And I believe in the power of youth-led activism.
Hi everyone, my name is Shawn Adams. I'm the head of public relations. So I'm a writer, lecturer, and architectural designer. And yeah, I honestly and truly believe in the power of underrepresented voices. So that's something that through POoR I've been aiming to do.
Hi, I'm Matt Harvey. I'm head of operations here at POoR. I'm a part qualified accountant and a club treasurer at Croydon Town, which is my football club. I'm currently working with Larry alongside with the Metropolitan Police to tackle issues involving policing of young people in Southwest London. Obviously, I'm not sure if many of you guys know, but there's a lack of trust and a real disconnect between communities and the police force in London. So it's me and Larry currently working with the police, representing POoR to potentially collaborate on a project involving policing with young people in London. So hopefully we'll have some more positive news to share with you guys in the future.
So how we came to be. I guess our organic journey can be split into 5 main sections. Sorry, next slide, please, Ben. The first being our shared experiences, our shared values, becoming a collective. Then our vision and mission, which really should have come at the very beginning, but then finally becoming POoR Collective as you know us today. Our shared experiences, sorry, back to the last slide, please. Our shared experiences. We all come from working class backgrounds, and during our experience, we were lucky enough to be able to go to youth clubs. Youth clubs provided various forms of support for us through mentorship, friendships, but then also it taught us many skills. For example, practical skills like cooking. Like I was able to learn how to make a Victoria sponge cake, for example. But then this leads us to our shared values. As you may know, many of these youth clubs no longer exist. And we believe that these facilities were key for our personal upbringing. So we decided to become a collective, work together to provide a support system, filling the void left by government cuts. And you know what they say, right? 2 heads are better than 1. And we've proven that 4 are even better. We decided to come together and work collectively to achieve our aims. Now that leads us to our vision and mission. Although, as aforementioned, we had shared values, our ideas did not completely align. So we needed to develop a vision and mission that unified us. So what is a vision? The vision is the ambitious what. What can your organization become, or what would your organization be if it was successful beyond your wildest dreams? So after loads and loads and loads of conversation and debate for weeks and weeks, we finally came to the conclusion, the unified conclusion that, next slide please, Ben. We wanted to create a world where youth see no limit. But now we needed to figure out the how, right? How do you achieve this ambitious what? So that's when we had to develop our mission. Next slide, please, Ben. Our mission answers the how. How do we create a world where youth see no limit? We decided to focus on the development of communities. Sorry, next slide, please. The development of communities through the elevation of young people. So ultimately, what we wanted to do was teach young people that they have the agency to create change, as we believe we do, through our collective action. Now, for us, this was a very, very, very important step, as we were able to gain a collective focus in the way we approached our projects. And now our vision and mission guides absolutely everything we do, including whether we chose to join this talk, for example. We absolutely every decision we make needs to needs to take us towards our vision and mission.
All right, cool. So what we do, we're going to take you through a couple of our kind of projects that we've taken on in the first kind of year that we've been out and about. And the first one is the Carney's Mural. So this is a vibrant new installation at Carney's Community Centre, which is over in Battersea. And Carney's Community is a registered charity that gets disadvantaged and excluded young people off of the streets and away from a life of crime. So working in collaboration with Wandsworth Creatives and the young people who are regulars at the centre, we co-designed a vibrant new piece of art that can be showcased on the outside of the community centre. And we did this through a series of workshops that we did during the half term. And we asked the young people to come along, and we asked them to just sit down and design with us and talk about what they would like to see kind of expressed on the outside of the building that would represent what Carney's kind of means to them, what the youth centre means to them, what it means to be a part of that local community, and how would you like to see elements of yourself, but also the community kind of reflected in our design. And that led to the design being created through a desire to improve the aesthetics and the functionality of the space simultaneously. And we really tried to have a conversation with these young people here. There's Richie there who's closest to the camera, and then there's Josh there, and they're about I can't quite remember off the top of my head. I think it's about 13. So we're really trying to have these kind of conversations about what does it mean to kind of see aspects of yourself reflected in your own community, and how can you directly have a voice in doing that. And through that, we after we'd kind of laid out the design with a small group of young people who were able to come on that day, we then staged an event where we actually painted and further designed the mural together with the young people, which looks a bit like this.
One thing I've learned from the youth at Carney's community, for example, is that they're all experts in their area. So their knowledge that they've brought to this mural, for example, is knowledge that none of us would have been able to come up with, and it's really been able to, it's really helped to sort of develop the design. Anyone who wants to, who's interested in doing something like what we do at POoR, is simply having an interest in your area and having the motivation to actually take the steps to sort of create something and find opportunities. Because there's loads of opportunities out there. You may realise that, for example, there's an alleyway that needs painting. There's some doors that don't work or something like that. It's recognising all of these small areas, small problems within areas, and having the agency to solve these problems. So I think the main thing is that you need is the motivation to do something.
For us, it's really about taking young people seriously, giving them the credit they deserve, taking their ideas and thoughts seriously as well.
Yeah, just having an open mind and just understanding that there's so many different ways you can help young people.
And being willing to put them on the same level as yourself and have a really honest and equal discussion with them. I think that's the main piece of advice if you wanted to do something similar to what we do.
Not caring about money, not caring about anything else. It's just simply trying to help and empower young people, because those are the future.
Okay.
A dream future project for me.
So I won't let that play too long. You can find the rest of that video, the whole of that video, on YouTube. Hopefully a link has appeared in the chat as well. This kind of project is a kind of a really good project to kind of kick off with, if you like. It's one of the first commissions we managed to get hold of, and it really helped us kind of cement in our minds and kind of really actualize what our methodology really is. So working with these young people, both in the design and kind of realizing the element that's going to help improve their community, but also upskilling them. So we really try to take them on a journey of what it means to kind of design, what it can do for you, what kind of having design skills can mean for you in terms of your future and your career. And we also tried to make it very functional as well. So as you can see, the mural is split up into these sections. And the idea is that the bike shop, which is attached to the community centre, which you can see in the background there, this wall is now going to become their kind of show wall, which they can display bikes on, so they'll hang them on the different sections of the mural as and when, because they actually have a program at the community centre where they teach young people to fix up bikes, and then they sell them on, and the young people get a tiny bit of money, and also a lot of the money goes towards running the youth centre as well. So there's that kind of balance between trying to find functionality to help the kind of spaces around us, but also taking these young people and finding value in the actual design process and methodology of the project itself. So that's kind of a good statement of intent of what kind of POoR is and what we're trying to do. And that's young Richie painting there. And that's the little squad we had at the end of it. So we really tried to build some connections with these young people as well. So the short kid just on the left there is Josh now, and he's actually one of our kind of affiliates now, I suppose you could say. We've worked with him a couple of times now, and he often comes along when we're doing something. We're in the area, we'll often shout him, and he might come along and help us out. So we're also trying to build up this little network of kind of helpers, if you like, that we can kind of take on this journey and try and start upskilling them over a longer period of time. And that's it. And then there's this one.
All right. So another one of our projects that we're currently working on is the People's Pavilion. So the People's Pavilion is an exciting design competition that is for ages 14 to 19. But what's fantastic about the People's Pavilion is that it's not only a design competition in a kind of traditional sense where young people are given an opportunity to build things, but it has a wealth of different things happening. So there's been a poetry competition, there's going to be workshops. There are currently a few workshops. So if you know any young people, make sure to go on Beyond the Box's website. But it's really all encompassing. But in terms of the People's Pavilion in itself, a little more, to give you a bit more context, it's essentially a 12-month program. So POoR has teamed up with a wealth of different organizations, from curators to artists to architects. But the project itself is headed by the Beyond the Box consultants, the RIBA, and Here East. So in terms of what I said before about it being all encompassing, one of the earliest things that was actually a part of the competition was a poetry competition. So we had asked young people, young Londoners, what it means to take up space. So what does it actually mean to take up space in London? And we got several incredible entries, but we had to whittle it down to a short list of 3 people. But what really stood out for us was Aretha's poem. She's quite she articulated how she felt as being a Black young female in London really powerfully. And there was something quite telling about the words that she used, but I'll let Aretha do the rest of the talking.
I'd really encourage everyone to really listen and take in what kind of Aretha's words are, because I think they are just so powerful. I mean, we were all really blown away by this piece of art when we got it.
My voice matters. So when I speak, I want to be heard. And that doesn't mean passive listening to lost words or appeasement without real concern. No, I want the attention that my voice deserves. My emotions matter. Uncharacterized by your perception of the angry Black girl, when in truth you never aimed to understand how I felt. So afraid to be the one who makes it all about race that I stopped speaking out on the problems I face, but I'm learning I'm worthy of taking up space. Representation matters, because who said different equated to wrong? When diversity is what makes society strong, why do I feel like I don't belong when I'm part of a team and no one else looks like me? And please, leave your ignorance at the door, because inequality is no longer something to be ignored, even if it has become society's norm. My presence matters, because it's important to be seen, to show other Black girls that their goals are within reach, to dream, of the future I want to build without a glass ceiling that is already sealed, to not only work but excel in my field. Now I'm still learning to find my place, to be patient, work hard, and run my own race. But my presence, they can never erase when I believe I'm worthy of taking up space.
So as part of the POoR Pavilion, we were actually recording several videos. So the poem that Arifa did, we actually recorded that, and when the pavilion is built at the Olympic Park's here East site, she'll hopefully be performing it live sometime during the 2-week program when it's there physically. So as you can see on the left, Ben and Larry are explaining how to do architectural drawings, so orthographic drawings. So what was really important for us within the POoR Pavilion is to upskill young people and give them several transferable skills. And we thought architectural drawings are something that are incredibly important, because these are things that are not only used by architects, but other types of designers, whether it's graphic designers, fashion designers, but also on the right, you can see Darcy, who actually works for 4 Monkey, which is an actor training company. So within the team, it's really collaborative. There's a wealth of different organizations, because we believe speaking and communication are also really fundamental to being able to articulate yourself. So Darcy's there giving tips to how to present and how to speak, and kind of present your ideas.
Because I think what's key about that is that when you are this is more aimed to make it accessible as possible to everyone. So if you are from a disadvantaged background, often young people can struggle in expressing themselves and communicating effectively. So this is really an attempt to try and make the competition as accessible to everyone, no matter your kind of economic background, as possible.
As Londoners, what do we take for granted?
Free travel, like free to travel.
Definitely. That's something that's actually going to be taken away from young Londoners soon.
Traveling gives you that accessibility and freedom to just go anywhere you want, because you have the bus, you can take the bus anywhere.
People are saying like, oh, you don't have free travel in many places, but that's fine, but it's not everywhere is as expensive to live in as in London.
Do you think if the funding was available, we should have free travel for trains for kids? Because right now, kids have to pay for travel, and I go to college and I'm having to pay money. Do you feel as though if the funds are available, taxpayer money should be used to allow kids to travel for free?
It just feels like these are basic, like, things that should be accessible to people.
Almost like human rights kind of thing.
Exactly.
The internet should be free now, I think, especially after COVID.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you mentioned a really good point, because we saw during coronavirus and lockdown how critical and important the internet was, and accessibility. And yes, I know that there were laptops and stuff going around, but a lot of young people suffered. And it just raises, it raises the questions of how critical is the internet in today's society.
Would we all agree with the fact that the government has really put young people's interests aside recently with dealing with COVID-19?
Well, just from like A-level results and GCSEs, it's quite clear that we've been shafted.
Right, so that was did you want to explain what that video was, Shawn, quickly?
As Londoners.
So that was one of the videos where the co-hosts, so within the actual POoR Pavilion competition, there are several co-hosts, so several young people were employed to speak to other young people and find out what they want to see in their local area. And for us, it is really important that we're not only working with young people, but we're showing that young people that we value their work, and by paying them, that's a clear way that that the POoR Pavilion is doing so. Because it's one thing to say young people are really valuable and they have really good points, but it's another thing to actually genuinely show that by paying them for their services. And we think that's something that's incredibly valuable. So in this round table, some of the co-hosts are talking to other young people, and at the time, for those of you that are familiar with London, Boris Johnson, if there were talks that he was going to take away free travel. So it was a really good opportunity for them to have a platform and speak about how they felt about some of the things that were happening in their city. So features, I mean, we've been quite lucky in a way that a lot of organizations have seen the work that we're doing and the kind of work that we're trying to get into, and seeing how we've been trying to support young people and have been willing to write articles or interview us. So we were lucky to be interviewed by FAD magazine. So we spoke to them about some of the work that we were doing. The RCA had actually written an article about us and was talking about some of the design practices and things that we were like kind of aiming to do. If we go to the next slide. We also spoke to Wands of Art. So Carney's mural, as Ben said earlier, is in Wandsworth, which is in southwest London. So the council for the area is Wandsworth Council. So as part of a series of talks, we were interviewed by someone from Wandsworth Art, and we spoke to them about, at the time, the kind of work that we're trying to get into and the work that we're doing at Carney's boxing gym. We've also been quite fortunate to have been approached by several architecture organisations, and we actually made it on the long list of the Thames Mead Waterfront. Sadly, we didn't quite get to the short list, but it was fantastic to be amongst some of the leading designers in the world. In our team, we had HTA Design, Christopher Adelaide Architecture, and Tonkin Liu, who are, as I'm sure many of you know, are fantastic designers. And more recently, I don't know how many of you have seen, Nympton Architects was selected for the kind of regeneration work that is being done at the Becontree estate. And we're really fortunate to be working with Verity Jane Keith on a commission where we'll be working with a local school and designing something tangible, something that the young people can really co-design with us and really have a stake in designing a piece of their environment. So look out for this and make sure to follow this, because this is going to be a really fantastic project.
I think it's quite important to say here that we wanted to show these kind of like bits and bobs that we've been doing and things that have been coming up. You know, obviously to big ourselves up, but also because it's been really gratifying to see in the year that we've kind of been going since POoR has gone from an idea that only existed in our heads to actually fully realised thing. We really started to see our kind of a mission, if you like, starting to be reflected back at us. So, and we've been fortunate enough to be included on some of this work. But it's been really great to see a lot of bigger platforms and organisations start to recognise the importance of youth voices as well. So we kind of, you know, we like to give credit where credit's due, and some of these platforms and opportunities are really starting to take youth kind of voices quite seriously, which is really good, we think.
So yeah, this section is some of our lessons and our goals that we have taken from just being our short term in operation. And if you can move to the next slide, please. So here, these are just some of the organizations we've collaborated with in our time in operation. I think it's important to note that even though we have, there's a number of our team members who come from an architectural background, here you can see a number of the organizations we worked with. And there's only about 3 here that I can see that is from an architectural background. And you can see that a number of these organizations really do vary in terms of the industry that they operate in. You can see Fourth Monkey is an acting organization. You've got Carney's and Dalgano Trust, who are youth centers. You've got Beyond the Box, who is a consultancy who work around youth engagement. So it really is a number of different organizations that we try to collaborate with. But then if you can move to the next slide, please. So here are some of the lessons that we have learned in our short term in operation. And from the first point is, if you don't define yourself clearly, other organizations or other people will do it for you. And what we mean by that is that organizations will come to you with a preconception of who you are. And most of the time, they already have an idea in mind. So it's very important to have an identity. So at least if the opportunities that they're bringing to you don't match your core values, you're able to push back and in some instances come to a happy medium. Because what you'll find is if you don't take care, you may have many opportunities that kind of represent like values that are different to your core values. The second lesson that we can take away from is having a clear vision and mission. And this links with the first point, but it's also good for everyone within the team to be on the same page. Having a clear vision and mission statement allows you to have those internal conversations to enable everyone to be on the same page. We had a number of difficult conversations, and thankfully through those conversations, we are able to trust each other wholeheartedly. The third lesson that we've taken away, and it's a lesson that seems pretty obvious, but it's prioritizing projects. And this one was one that took a while for us to get used to, because at the time, at the start of operation, it's very easy to be taking on all opportunities. But we needed to remember that we work full time, and we're operating with POoR as part-time. So resourcing and capacity can be quite scarce. So if you're taking on too many projects, it's hard to kind of prioritize. And it's better to take on a small amount of projects, but have the quality higher, instead of taking on a number of projects, but maybe deviating away from having like really quality projects to show for it. And then the last lessons that we can take away is learning how to say no. And this kind of goes hand in hand with prioritizing projects. At the start, being in operation, it's very easy to take on many opportunities. And it's something that happened this week, in fact, with me and Larry had a meeting with this organization, and the opportunity seemed really surreal and really good that we found it really hard to turn it down, and we had to consult with the team, and then we were then able to go back to the organization and say no. So it's something that we've had to learn, and it's still something that's really difficult for us, but yeah, I think it's an important lesson to note. So if you can move on to the next slide, please, Ben. So these are some of the goals that we're striving to achieve in the coming years. And the first is to expand the POoR community. What we mean by this is building our network, and that ranges from schools, youth centers, local authorities, and private companies. And the aim of this is to have a wide range of people at our disposal to be able to help facilitate opportunities as and when they arise. The second goal that we're striving or aiming to achieve is to build the mentoring framework. So this is setting up a framework or a methodology to be able to mentor the young people. This is a huge ambition for us and something that will take considerable amount of time, but eventually it would be great to not only be providing opportunities for the young people, but to be also able to mentor them as well. The third goal of ours is to initiate more of our own projects. A lot of our opportunities have come through collaborating with other organizations, but it would be good to facilitate some of the projects on our own. And it's something that we tried to do this year, but through no fault of our own, because of the current pandemic, it's been something that we've had to put on the back seat, because things like funding opportunities being restricted and being focused more towards opportunities that are tailored towards helping with the current situation, current pandemic. So that's kind of put that goal on the back burner for now, but it's something that we will try to work on in the coming years. The fourth goal of ours, and this is something that is important to note, is to design and build more murals, interventions, and pavilions. And the real important thing to note for this is that in doing this, we can interact with the young people. We can provide opportunities for the young people, as noted in the presentation above. Through Carney's community and through designing the mural, we were able to consult with the young people. We were able to design something that has like real importance to the young people, and that's something that is a core belief of ours, and something that we have a process in place where when we're coming to design murals, it's all about consulting with the young people. It's about providing opportunities, taking them away from the streets, and just really, really empowering and upskilling the young people. So that's something that we focus on. And also it's important to note that from the People's Pavilion, not only are we doing this where we're upskilling the young people, within designing the pavilion, we're able to provide opportunities for paid roles and paid jobs, which is something that's a core belief of ours as well. And then it's also important to note that in doing so, designing murals and interventions and pavilions is something that is going to help with the legacy here that we want to build here at POoR. And this leads us on finally to the last goal, which is to collaborate with more local authorities, artists and designers. And this kind of goes hand in hand with the first goal of ours, which is to help build the POoR community. So that, I think I'll leave it there.
Cool. Thanks for putting up with us, everyone.
Great, thank you guys.
Yeah. If anyone violently disagrees with what we've said, maybe you can this is usually my favourite bit of the whole thing. So I don't know if Platon, you wanted to like kick off the Q&A.
I mean, I have a couple of questions. I just want to open it up to the audience first.
Yeah. People just shout out.
Yeah.
They want to.
Daisy, do you want to?
They dare.
I don't have a question. I just really loved hearing you talk about your project and everything you've achieved over the past year. The things that particularly stayed with me was your commitment to saying no to projects that don't align with your mission and vision, because that must be such a hard thing to do, as you said. But
yeah, I think it's like, to elaborate, because it's a bit that we never really like we don't mention too much, but I think it was like incredibly important for us specifically, if that makes sense, because I think we come with so much inbuilt social value because of who we are and what we do, that often people are very eager to like snap us up, if that makes sense.
Actually, I do have a question.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is, so I mean, well done for being on the shortlist on the Thamesmead project. But I'm really interested to hear from you, if you had have been successful on a project of that scale, with corporate architects working in a very developer-led context. Yeah. What do you, where do you see the kind of points where you feel, in terms of your belief, which I love, in agency and in effecting change in a different way and shifting power structures, what would you have seen that you could have achieved at this stage in your career in that context?
It's a really good question. I don't know. Shawn, do you want to?
I think what we said before about the vision and mission, I think when we speak about the vision and mission, it really like permeates through everything that we do. So regardless of the scale of the project, like we would still go about in the same way. We just believe that the kind of small interventions the small scale interventions that we currently be doing would be kind of completely scaled up when we do that. So in a way, we understood that it's a massive project and it's really daunting, but we still thought that we're going in there to help young people. We're going in there to inspire young people. We're going in there to train up young people. But this is an opportunity that instead of it being a mural, we could do something a lot more expansive. It could be something a lot more bigger, a lot more tangible. So in a way, it's just those same principles are just kind of made bigger exponentially. But because we know we're working with young people and we want to upskill young people and we want them to design something tangible, those same principles, regardless of the size, will always be the driving force. So if we were to get a massive project that was like Thamesmead again, but if it didn't align with those principles, we would have to sadly say no.
Yeah, and I think
remember the typical. Remember, like the typical approach to projects like this is always top down, right? Where our focus is always it's usually primarily bottom up. So we're always so sort of impacting from the bottom up always provides like a new opportunity to approach the project slightly differently as well. Like from like using the perspective, like using the perspective and the sort of like the experience of the local people as well to add the extra value to the project. So we always think that if you sort of tackle things from the community, from the young people, you're able to affect the project in a way that you wouldn't be able to approach it from the developer's perspective anyway.
Yeah, and I think maybe what you're kind of like getting at slightly there as well, Daisy, is that, you know, that when you go into a bigger project like that, there's always going to be the danger that you are inadvertently contributing to something that's not that good overall. And I think that's something that we do talk about and think about quite a lot. And it's something that you really do have to take on a case-by-case basis. And I'm not sure we exactly have like a real policy on that yet. But I know that our kind of idea with the Thamesmead stuff was that we were not going to come in as designers, as in we're not imposing anything on that process. So I think I kind of go personally back and forth on this, but there is the argument you could say of, well, this is going forward anyway. What can we do to like kind of, you know, bring value into that process if it's going to happen anyway? But yeah, it is. I think it's a really good question because I think it's something that is incredibly tricky of balancing your own kind of effectiveness against contributing to something not so positive. So yeah, it's I think it's something we'll just have to continually struggle against forever. But yeah, it's a really good question.
Yeah, I'm not saying that wasn't a positive
project. No.
In like the scale, you know, that kind of scaled thing of how different organisations operate. But thank you very much.
No, that's right.
Anyone else? Elena.
Hi. Just before I get kind of bombed by domesticity, which is, I'm feeling the force behind me, you know. So again, thanks so much for that. I mean, it's just kind of humbling in terms of how much you've managed to do so quickly, you know, and it really shows the power of the collective. And I think that's what I really take forward from this. And I also the notion of channeling. I think you're more than a platform. That's kind of become a term that we need to unsettle. And, you know, hearing the poetry and hearing the various channels you offer, so many different voices, scales, whatever it is. I think the notion of channel is one which might orchestrate and might lead us into different avenues, scales of engagement, of subversion, because there is always this danger of co-option, as you mentioned, you know. Yeah. But you know, the flip side of that is subversion from whichever position you choose to take, whether that decision is no or whether it's yes. I think it's always a political act. And even the projects that you say no to, I think might form an interesting index in their own right to disclose and to unsettle what we think we know about all of these processes. So I think, you know, I take from you this wonderful gift of, you know, channel as a concept of doing tangible things, however big or small they are, whether they're audible, whether they're visible, whether they're physical, or whether it's just showing care. And I think that's a very, very powerful thing that design brings, and you bring it in so many beautiful ways. So thank you.
Yeah, I think that yeah, there is like a real, like you say, like the political act of saying no. I think that's like something that I really like about what we do, or the kind of nature of what we do. And I often think about, I admire Black females in architecture, the way they kind of go about it as well, in that it's one thing to say no, but if you make an act out of it and let people know that you said no. For example, they have this platform, they have this kind of like thing where they don't work with the RIBA, right? For example, I mean, we can go back and forth on whether that's a good thing or not, but they've made that act and say, we do not do this. That's something, that's a line in the sand we just don't cross. like you say, that's an incredibly political act, and there's design within that as well. So I think although we don't have a line in the sand as like strong as that yet, yeah, I think that's like there is the kind of like that's an incredibly interesting like thing about not learning to say no, but like having kind of like a kind of a line you won't cross. If that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know if any of the other guys have an opinion on that. No,
I think you made a really good point about channeling, like a channel or a conduit, because in a way we're taking the voices, or our ambitions are to take those voices of young people that are often unheard and kind of put them through a loudspeaker and let society hear those voices, and let designers, practitioners, professionals see the worth that these young people have. So I guess in a way that also does speak to what Davey had asked before, when it comes to the size of the scales, whether it's a massive sprawling scheme or a really small internal mural, the same process we're going through the same process of kind of channeling these voices and giving them an opportunity to really mold and craft a piece of their environment.
Tina?
So thank you very much for the presentation. I wanted to ask, because, well, I think that it's really interesting in the sense that I think that it's kind of more than working from architecture. It's this idea of just as a kind of, in some of the projects, a kind of a curator about the voices and bringing this platform. In other cases, I guess that it's more about policies and which kind of devices in the urban space we can provide. And I'm just wondering, because you talk about bottom-up experiences, and I think that many of the policies in terms of youth, it's always like from the top. And I'm just wondering if you have like ideas or projects about which kind of new protocols or which kind of urban spaces or networks you are thinking to create in the city in order to expand a bit. So it's more about what you have not talked about, these kind of new projects that maybe you have on mind, or kind of pilot projects that you.
Yeah. I think so for example, with the People's Pavilion, the main output that we're kind of like looking after with that project is a publication that comes at the end of the project. So you've got the built thing, which is going to be whatever it is. But what we're looking after is telling a story of how this project came to be and what it means, and looking into the actually measuring the impact of what this process means if you actually seriously co-design with young people and do it properly, and how you do it properly and what it means if you do, and how it can enrich the process. And then that document kind of lives on as part of the project. So I think in terms of affecting policy, we are like very interested in that. And that almost that's actually like, although we say there's always like a kind of built outcome of our projects, which there's also this other thing which kind of goes on in the kind of like telling the story of it. And the idea of that is that document could be handed to any policymaker, any developer, any school, any youth centre. If they want to find a way to build co-design with young people into some of their projects, they can kind of take that on. So I think we're very interested in legacy, I think. And although I wouldn't say we're not interested in trying to affect, high level local authority policy regarding this stuff, although I'm not sure any of us are massively qualified to actually get involved in that just yet. But in terms of kind of spinning a narrative and kind of trying to affect future projects that aren't anything to do with us in that way, I think that's something we're very interested in. We try to do.
Yeah, I think that because for our own experience, when we are doing also participatory design, for example, to really arrive to the young generations and to feel that they have a voice, it's really, really important, difficult, but also important. So I really congratulate for the work. And I think that it's important to just let this kind of materials and information to arrive through to them. So that's, I think it's also key to just, so they can organize and ask any institution to bring you to help them, for example, not just like in which way we can just turn to the things in the other way around and just let or give the agency. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed.
I think it is important to note that it's something that we are considering. We are trying to work with more local authorities to be able to get in and be able to contact them and have discussions around these issues. So it is something that we are considering. And again, we will in the future hopefully be working with some local authorities in certain communities to bring these conversations to them. So.
I have two questions, if I may ask. I mean, thanks for the really inspiring and fantastic presentation. And some of the questions that I wanted to ask, others have done already. But I just want to point out to two elements that I need you somehow to tell us a bit more, which is the role of institutions such as universities in these projects. I mean, I think that there is something which is very important also for the collective, which is the the RCA and then the universities that are for you important and formative, and institutions that are for you important and formative, but also potentially important alliances or spaces of alliance for these projects, right? Together with, of course, municipalities and other things. So that's one question. And the other question has to do with funding and the possibilities that exist for projects and collectives like yours out there. The formation of again, maybe one could say alliances or collaborations, if I use a more banal corporate word here, that allow for some of these possibilities to support this kind of work to be possible, or you can be eligible for. I mean, it's
So I can answer the funding question. So yeah, it's a good question. And what we have found is that through working in collaboration with like a number of the organizations that we're working with, funding opportunities have been quite good. What you find is that there's a lot of people willing to spend the money. They just need some ideas and some really strong ideas to put their money behind. In terms of like funding from like local authorities and stuff, it's something that we've had to take a backward seat from because of the current pandemic. When we did look through funding opportunities through certain local authorities and stuff, it was something that it's there in abundance. But obviously, given the current pandemic, priorities were more centered around opportunities to help support the current pandemic. So yeah, in terms of like funding opportunities, we've had to mainly work in collaboration with organizations because that's where a lot of the funding has come from.
Oh,
I'm not sure if that. Pardon?
I'm not sure if this is gonna. Yeah, I'm not sure if this specifically answers the role of universities, but I'm thinking that places like, for example, the RCA, the AA, they're not easy to access, especially for people from working class backgrounds, for example.
Absolutely.
Part of that is because of the fees, of course, but then other parts, other reasons are simply because of the sort of cultural, I guess, effects of, like, for example, architecture. Middle class white males is the typical is the largest percentage of the workforce, right? So it's like sometimes and the opportunity for universities like the RCA, the AA, and so on to begin to like engage in work like this. There's opportunities for like people who wouldn't typically have the opportunity to go to some of these places to actually know about these places. But then I guess the next step would be to begin to provide opportunities in these areas as well. So like, I guess it's like really thinking about how we like approach. So it's almost like a new form of marketing, maybe the wrong term, but do you kind of see where I'm going with this?
I really agree, Larry. I think that I think that leads into something else we're kind of interested in, which is kind of guiding people into those kind of like academic and professional kind of like circles or situations that they might not be naturally kind of prone to gravitating towards anyway. So things like apprenticeships and not internships, but and mentoring schemes can be incredibly effective to get you into the space of a university, which can be an incredible, I mean, you know, going to the RCA was just absolutely key for me in terms of my development as like just a person, not even a designer. But like, I think that it's about how we kind of like what methods we use to funnel into those amazing institutions to make them even more amazing and accessible. So things like apprenticeship schemes, I think that's something we're like very interested in as well, to maximize the kind of reach that these institutions can have in the future and have had in the past, almost about reclaiming what the reach they once had. Does that answer your question? Yeah, go on, sorry, Shawn.
I think to add to that, what's important for each and every one of us is taking the skills that we learn at these institutions. So obviously 3 of us are trained in what have architectural backgrounds, so we've got like abilities to like draw out plans and do the kind of traditional things that people assume that you learn at architecture school. However, we also learn a wealth of different skills, and I think that's important for us. That is like these skills that you learn, you can use them and you can teach them to other people, and you can give other people a real shot in making a difference. So in a way, the kind of some of the most valuable skills that we took from our studies aren't the kind of ones that you would immediately think, like being able to do a detail of a building. It's the communication skills. It's being able to come up with an idea. It's being able to work as a group. So a lot of these skills that we actually learned from university are we've taken them and in a way used them in areas that we're really passionate about. But again, I think I have to, in saying that, I do have to agree with Ben and Larry in the sense that it takes an arm and a leg to get to these institutions, or to even get through the first door to even be able to go to a lot of these universities. I think for a lot of people, university kind of seem like a natural progression, but for many of us and many of the young people that we work with, it's just simply not an option. And I think these are the kind of considerations that a lot of these institutions really need to think about and consider, because I know there's a lot of kind of, people can say there's a lot of scholarships and whatnot out there, but it's like, who are those things going to, and what difference will those people make once you give them a shot or give them an opportunity?
Yeah,
totally. I mean, I mean, there's so much work to do. I mean, and not just in architectural education, but in many other fields as well. I mean, and you're totally right. I mean, it's things that we take for granted, or some of us take for granted, because we're coming from specific class, or we're white and middle class, right? I mean, and male as well. They're not necessarily at all the case for the majority. And then, I mean, it's also, for me, there's another question. I mean, the question about the university and educational institutions is also the possibility that we have as young academics, young practitioners, to basically steer them towards these projects. So, I found them particularly, especially in this time, particularly, let's say, plastic or elastic. I think we can open up multiple, let's say, battles or multiple fronts with many universities and many schools, because there's I think honestly that there is a wind of change that's blowing in relation to some of the subjects, and I think now it's the time, and that's why your practice is potentially on the front line of this, as well others as well, on the front line of this battles.
On the front line, wow. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there is change coming. I think especially I'm sure a lot of people have seen like the kind of recent architectural workers survey that was published in Age and stuff like that, and I think that's exposed a lot of problems in the industry. I think the more we can kind of contextualize architectural education and the industry as well, and get it to be less kind of siloed. I think it is very siloed from a lot of other forms of academia and industry. And I think the more we do that, and the more we can kind of contextualize it amongst other professions and stuff, the more we might realize, oh, actually, like, they've actually already solved some of these problems. And we could just, like, you know, learn lessons from someone else. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel constantly. And that might help speed up. So I agree with you. I think there is like change coming, but it feels incredibly slow. And I wonder if there's a way, this is just complete speculation, but I wonder if there is a way of speeding up that progressive change through kind of contextualizing the academia and the industry as well. It's just I suspect that might be true.
I think to my mind, at least the most important thing is to make universities and schools each and every day accountable for every decision that they make. There is no time to lose right now in anything that is affecting vulnerable communities, individuals, anything that touches upon climate change, race and gender justice. There is no, I mean, like, there are decisions that these institutions take every day that are so-called like bureaucratic or technocratic, apart from the larger ones, that, you know, we just have to be alert. I mean, that's the way I think, at least.
Yeah.
Good. Amazing.
Cool.
Are there any questions? Any more questions from the audience? If not, we can close the amazing conversation and the fantastic lecture. So, is there anyone that wants to say anything or ask? No.
Everyone's keen to go for their dinner.
Great. So, you know, Larry, Matt, Ben, and Shawn, thank you so much for today. We'll be in touch, that's for sure, and we will hopefully welcome you back to the AA in our program very, very soon. All right?
Cool.
Yeah,
Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Take care.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. It was really good.
Really good to see you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Cheers. Bye.